Hello, Project Focus. This is Carlos again. Today we are joined by
Bella.
she's going to help us read today with our continued story of wonder. Before we start, as you recall from last time, the instructions were to make a comic strip, to fold your paper into six, and then come up with three comic strips. I'll show you mine first, what I did. If you take a look, first I did Augie and his mother. If you recall in the story, he said his mother had trouble with fractions, so I drew that. Then I drew his him and his friend Christopher playing. Remember, he had a friend named Christopher. And then the third scene I drew was him and his mother going to meet Mr. Tushman, the principal at the school. Belly, want to show him yours? She did something similar. And again, after every time we read, we are going to do three comic strips, and we'll show them after every time we read. Okay? So let's begin with our second reading of Wonder. If we recall, they were at the principal's office, and Mrs. Garcia just came in, and she brought three students with her to show Augie around the school. So that's where we're going to begin. Thanks so much for coming, guys, especially since school doesn't start until next month, said Mr. Tushman. Have you had a good summer? All of them nodded, but no one said anything. Great, great, said Mr. Tushman. So, guys, I wanted you to meet Augustus. He's going to be a new student here this year. August, these guys have been students at Beecher Prep since kindergarten. Through of course, they were in the lower school building, but they know all the ins and outs of the middle school program. And since you're all in the same homeroom, I thought it would be nice if you got to know each other a little before school started. Okay? So, kids, this is August. August, this is Jack. Jack Will. Jack Will looked at me and put out his hand. When I shook his hand, he kind of half smiled and said, "Hey," and looked down really fast. "This is Julian," said Mr. Tushman. "Hey," said Julian, and did the same exact thing as Jack. Jack Will took my hand, forced a smile, looked down fast. "And Charlotte," he said, said Mr. Tushman. Charlotte had the blondest hair I've ever seen. She didn't shake my hand, but gave me a quick little wave and smiled. "Hi, August. Nice to meet you," she said. "Hi," I said, looking down. She was wearing bright green Crocs. "So," Mr. Tushman, putting his hands together in a kind of slow clap, "what I thought you guys could do is to take August on a little tour of the school. Maybe you could start with on the third floor. That's where your homeroom class is going to be. Room 301. I think Miss G is. Room 301," Miss Garcia called out from another room. "Room 301," Mr. Tushman nodded. "And then you can show August the science lab and the computer lab. When work Then work your way down to the library and the performance space on the second floor. Take him to the cafeteria, of course." "Should we take him to the music room?" asked Julian. "Good idea, yes," said Mr. Tushman. "August, do you play any instruments?"
No, I said. It wasn't my favorite subject on account of the fact that I don't really have ears. Well, I do, but they don't exactly look like normal ears. Well, you may enjoy seeing in the music room anyway, said Mr. Tushman. We have a very nice selection of percussion instruments. August, you've been wanting to learn to play the drums, and Mom said it, trying to get me to look at her. But my eyes were covered by my bangs as I start I stared at a piece of old gum that was stuck to the bottom of Mr. Tushman's desk. Great, okay, so why don't you guys get going, said Mr. Tushman. Just be back here in, he looked at Mom, half an hour, okay? I think Mom nodded. So is that okay with you, August? He asked me. I didn't answer. Is that okay with August? Mom repeated. I looked at her now. I wanted to see how mad I was at her. But then I saw her face and just nodded. She seemed more scared than I was. The other kids had started out the door, so I followed them. See you soon, said Mom, her voice sounding a little higher than normal. I didn't answer her.
The grand tour. Jack, Will, Julian, Charlotte, and I went down a big hallway to some wide stairs. No one said a word as we walked up to the third floor. Then we got to the top of the stairs. We went down to a little hallway full of lots of doors. Julian opened the door marked 301. This is our homeroom, he said, standing in front of the half-open door. We have Miss Petesso, and they say she's okay, and at least for homeroom. I heard that she's really strict if you get her from math though. That's not true, said Charlotte. My sister had her last year and said she's totally nice. Not know what I heard, answered Julian, but whatever. He closed the door and continued walking down the hallway. This is the science lab, he said when he got to the next door. And just just like that, just like he did 2 seconds ago, he stood in front of the door, half opened, and started talking. He didn't look at me once while he talked, which was okay because I wasn't looking at him either. You won't know who you have for science until the first day of school, but you want to get Mr. Haller. He used to be in the lower school. He would play his giant tuba in class. It was baritone horn. It was a baritone horn, said Charlotte. It was a tuba, answered Julian, closing the door. Dude, let's go inside so we can check it out. Jack Will told him, pushing aside Julian and opening the door. Go inside if you want, Julian said. It was the first time he looked at me.
I shrugged and walked over to the door. Julian moved out of the way quickly, like he was afraid I might accidentally touch him as I passed by. Nothing much to see, Julian said, walking in after me. He started pointing to a bunch of stuff around the room. That's the incubator. That big black thing is a chalkboard. These are desks. These are chairs. Those are the Bunsen burners. This is a gross science poster. This is chalk. This is the eraser. I'm sure he knows what an eraser is, Charlotte said, sounding a little like a Via. How would I know that he knows? Julian answered. Mr. Tushman said he's never been to a school before. You know what an eraser is, right? Charlotte asked me. I admit I was feeling so nervous that I didn't know what to say or do except look at the floor. Hey, can you talk? Asked Jack Will. Yeah, I nodded. I still really hadn't looked at any of them yet, not directly. You know what an eraser is, right? Asked Jack Will. Of course, I mumbled. I told you there was nothing to see in here, said Julian, shrugging. I have a question, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. What exactly is homeroom? Is that like a subject? No, that's just a group, explained Charlotte, ignoring Julian's smirk. It's like where you go when you get to school in the morning and your homeroom teacher takes attendance and stuff like that. In a way, it's your main class, even though it's not really a class. I mean, it's a class, but I think he gets it, Charlotte, said Jack. Well, do you get it? Charlotte asked me. Yeah, I nodded at her.
Okay, let's go out. Let's get out of here, said Jack Will, walking away. Wait, Jack, we're supposed to be answering questions, said Charlotte. Jack Will rolled his eyes a little as he turned around. Do you have any more questions? He asked. No, I answered. Oh, well, actually, yes. What is your name, Jack, or Jack Will? Jack is my first name. Will is my last name. Oh, because Mr. Tushman introduced you as Jack Will. So I thought, ha, you thought his name was Jack Will? Laughed Julian. Yeah, some people call me by my first and last name, Jack said, shrugging. I don't know why. Anyway, we can go now. Let's go to the performing space next, said Charlotte, leading the way out of the science room. It's very cool. You'll like it, August.
The performance space. Charlotte basically didn't stop talking as we headed down to the second floor. She was describing the play they had put on last year, which was Oliver. She played Oliver even though she's a girl. As she said this, she pushed open the double doors to a huge auditorium. At the other end of the room was a stage. Charlotte started skipping toward the stage. Julian ran after her, and then turned around halfway down the aisles. Come on, he said loudly, waving for me to follow him, which I did. There was like hundreds of people in the audience that night, said Charlotte, and it took me a second to realize she was still talking about Oliver. I was so nervous. I had so many so many lines, and I had all these songs to sing. I was it was so hard. Although she wasn't talking, although she was talking to me, she really didn't look at me much. On opening night, my parents were all the way in the back of the auditorium, like where Jack is right now. But when the lights are off, you can't really see that far back. So I was like, "Where are my parents? Where are my parents?" And then Mr. Resnick, our theater arts teacher last year, he said, "Charlotte, stop being such a diva." And I was like, "Okay." And then I spotted my parents, and I was totally fine. I didn't forget a single line. While she was talking, I noticed Julian staring at me out of the corner of his eye. This is something I see people do a lot with me. They think I don't know they're staring, but I can tell from the way their heads are tilted. I turned around to see where Jack had gone to.
He had stayed in the back of the auditorium like he was bored. We put on a play. We put on a play every year," said Charlotte. "I don't think he's going to want to be in the school play," Charlotte said Julian sarcastically. "You could be in the play without actually being in the play," Charlotte answered, looking at me. "You can do the lighting, you can paint the backdrops." "Oh yeah, whoopee," said Julian, twirling his finger in the air. "But you don't have to take the theater arts elective if you don't want to," Charlotte said, shrugging. "There's a dancing chorus or band. There's leadership." "Only dorks take leadership," Julian interrupted. Julian was being so obnoxious. "Julian, you're being so obnoxious," said Charlotte, which was making Julian laugh. "I'm taking the science elective," I said. "Cool," said Charlotte. Julian looked directly at me. "The science elective is supposed to be the hardest elective of all," he said. "No offense, but if you never ever been in a school before, why do you think you're suddenly going to be smart enough to take the science elective? I mean, have you ever even studied science before? Like real science, not like the kind you do in kits?" "Yeah," I nodded. "He was homeschooled, Julian," said Charlotte. "So teachers came in your house?" asked Julian, looking puzzled. "No, his mother taught him," said Charlotte. "Is she a teacher?" Julian said. "Is your mother a teacher?" Charlotte asked me. "No," I said. "So she's not a real teacher?" asked Julian, as in the provided his point, as he proved his point.
That's what I mean. How can someone who's not a real teacher actually teach science? "I'm sure you'll do fine," said Charlotte, looking at me. Let's uh, let's just go to the library now," Jack called out, sounding really bored. "Why is your hair so long?" Julian said to me. He sounded like he was annoyed. I didn't know what to say, so I just shrugged. "Can I ask you a question?" he said. I shrugged again. Didn't he just ask? Didn't he just ask me a question? "What's the deal with your face? I mean, were you in a fight or something?" "Julian, that's so rude," said Charlotte. "I'm not being rude," said Julian. "I'm just asking a question." Mr. Tushman said we could ask questions if we wanted to. "Not rude questions like that," said Charlotte. "Besides, he was born like that. That's what Mr. Tushman said. You just weren't listening." "I was so listening," said Julian. "I just thought maybe he was in a fight or two." "Geez, Julian," said Jack, "just shut up." "You shut up," Julian yelled. "Come on, August," said Jack. "Let's just go to the library already." I walked toward Jack and followed him out of the auditorium. He held the double doors open for me, and as I passed by, he looked right at me in the face, kind of daring me to look back at him, which I did. Then I actually smiled. I don't know, sometimes when I have the feeling like I'm almost crying, I can turn into an almost laughing feeling. And that must have been the feeling I was having then, because I smiled almost like I was going to giggle. The thing is that because of the way my face is, people who don't know me very well don't always get that I'm smiling.
My mouth doesn't go up at the corners the way other people's mouths do. It just goes straight across my face. But somehow Jack Will got what I had smiled at. Got that I had smiled at him, and he smiled back. "Julian's a jerk," he whispered back before Julian and Charlotte reached us. "But dude, you're gonna have to talk." He said this seriously, like he was trying to help me. I nodded at Julian, and Charlotte caught up to us. They were all quiet For a second, all of us just kind of nodded, looking at the floor. Then I looked up at Julian. The words supposedly, by the way, I said. What are you talking about? You said supposedly before, I said. I did not. Yeah, you did, Charlotte nodded. You said the science elective is supposedly really hard. I heard you. I absolutely did not, he insisted. Whatever, said Jack. Let's go. Let's just go. Yeah, let's just go, agreed Charlotte. Following Jack down the stairs to the next floor, started to follow her, but Julian cut right in front of me, which actually made me stumble backwards. Oops, sorry about that, said Julian, but I could tell from the way he looked at me that he wasn't really sorry at all.
The deal. Mom and Mr. Tushman were talking about when we got back to the office. Mrs. Garcia was the first to see us come back, and she started smiling her shiny smile as we walked in. So, August, what do you think? Did you like what you saw? She asked. Yeah, I nodded, looking over at Mom. Jack, Julie, and Charlotte were standing by the door, not sure where to go or if they were still needed. I wondered that I wondered what else they'd been told about me before they met me. Did you see it? Did you see the baby chick? Mom asked me. As I shook my head, Julian said, "Are you talking about the baby chicks in science? Those are donated to a those that get donated to a farm at the end of every school year." Oh, said Mom, disappointed. But they had 2 new ones every year in science, Julian added, so August will be able to see them again in the spring. Oh, good, said Mom, eyeing me. They were so cute, August. I wish that she wouldn't talk to me like I was a baby in front of other people. So, August, said Mr. Tushman, did these guys show you around enough, or do you want to see more? I realized I forgot to ask them to show you the gym. We did anyway, Mr. Tushman, said Julian. Excellent, said Mr. Tushman. And I told him about the school play and some of the electives, said Charlotte. Oh no, she said suddenly. We forgot to show him the art room.
That's okay, said Mr. Tushman. But we can show it to him now, Charlotte offered. Don't we have to pick Vi up soon? I said to Mom. That was our signal for my telling Mom that I really wanted to leave. Oh, you're right, said Mom, getting up. I could tell that she was pretending to check the time on her watch. I'm sorry, everybody. I lost track of time. We have to go pick up my daughter at her no school. She's taking an unofficial tour today. That part wasn't a lie. That Vi was checking out her new school today. The part that was a lie was that we were picking her up at the school, which we weren't. She was coming home with Dad later. Where does she go to school? Asked Mr. Tushman, getting up. She started Faulkner High School this fall. Wow, that's not an easy school to get into. Good for her. Thank you, said Mom, nodding. It'll be a bit of a schlep, though. An A train down to eighth grade, then the crosstown bus all the way to East Side. Takes an hour that way, but it's only 15-minute drive. It'll be worth it. I know a couple of kids who got into Faulkner and loved it, said Mr. Tushman. We really should go, Mom, I thought, tugging at her pocketbook. We said goodbye kind of quickly after that. I think Mr. Tushman was a little surprised that we were leaving so suddenly, and then wondered if he would become Jack or Charlotte, even though it was really only Julian who made me feel kind of bad. Everyone was really nice. I made sure to tell Mr. Tushman before I left. I look forward to having you as a student, said Mr. Tushman, patting my back. Bye, I said to Jack, Charlotte, and Julian, but I didn't look at them or look up at all until I left the building.
Home. As soon as we walked at least half a block from the school, Mom said, "So, how'd it go? Did you like it?" "Not yet, Mom. When we get home," I said. The moment we got inside the house, I ran to my room and threw myself on my bed. I could tell Mom didn't know what was up, and I guess I really didn't either. I felt sad and a tiny bit happy at the exact same time. Kind of like that laughing, crying feeling all over again. My dog Daisy followed me to my room, jumped on the bed, and started licking me all over my face. "Who's a good girlie?" I said in my my dad voiced. Who's a good girlie? Is everything okay, sweetness? Mom said she wanted to sit down beside me, but Daisy was hogging the bed. Excuse me, Daisy. She sat down, nudging Daisy over. Were those kids not nice to you, Augie? Oh no, I said, only half lying. They were okay, but were they nice? Mr. Tishman went out of his way to tell me what sweet kids they are. Uh-huh, I nodded, but I kept looking at Daisy, kissing her on the nose and rubbing her ear until her back leg did that little flea scratch shake. That boy Julian seemed especially nice, Mom said. Oh no, he was the least nice. I like Jack though. He was nice. I thought his name was Jack Will, but it's just Jack. Wait, maybe I'm getting them confused. Which one was the one with the dark hair that was brushed forward?
Julian. And he wasn't nice. No, not nice. Oh, she thought about this for a second. Okay, so he's the kind of kid who's one way in front of a grown-ups and another way in front of kids. Yeah, I guess. Oh, hate those, she answered, nodding. He was like, so August, what's the deal with your face? I said, looking at Daisy the whole time. You were in a fire or something? Mom didn't say anything. When I looked up at her, I could tell she was completely shocked. He didn't say it in a mean way, I said quickly. He was just asking. Mom nodded. But I really like Jack, I said. He was like, shut up, Julian, and Charlotte was like, you're so rude, Julian. Mom nodded again. She pressed her fingers on her forehead like she was pushing against a headache. I'm so sorry, Augie, she said quietly. Her cheeks were bright red. No, it's okay, Mom, really. You don't have to go to school if you don't want to, sweetie. I want to, I said. Augie. Really, Mom, I want to. And I wasn't lying.
First day jitters. Okay, so I admit that the first day of school I was so nervous that the butterflies in my stomach were more like pigeons flying around on my insides. Mom and Dad were probably a little nervous too, but they acted all excited for me, taking pictures of me and Via before we left the house, since it was Via's first day of school too. Up until a few days before, we still weren't sure I would be going to school at all. After my tour of the school, Mom and Dad had reversed sides on whether I should go or not. Mom was now the one saying I shouldn't go, and Dad was saying I should. Dad had told me he was really proud of how I handled myself with Julian and that I was turning into quite the strong man. And I heard him tell Mom that he now thought she had been right all along, but Mom, I could tell, wasn't so sure anymore. When Dad told her that he and Via wanted to walk me to school today, too, since it was on the way to the subway station, Mom seemed relieved that we would all be together, and I guess I was too. Even though at Beecher Prep, even though Beecher Prep is just a few blocks from our house, I've only been on that block a couple times before. In general, I try to avoid blocks where there are a lot of kids roaming around. On our block, everybody knows me, and I know everybody. I know I know every brick and every tree trunk and every crack in the sidewalk. And I know what Mrs. Grim- Grimaldi, the lady who's always sitting by her window, and the old guy who walks up and down the street whistling like a bird. I know the deli on the corner where Mom gets our bagels, and the waitress at the coffee shop who all calls who calls me honey and gives me lollipops whenever they see me.
I love my neighborhood of North River Heights, which is why it was so strange to be walking down these blocks feeling like it was all new to me suddenly. Amerford Avenue, a street I've been down a million times, looked totally different for some reason. Full of full of people I never saw before, waiting for buses, pushing strollers. We crossed Amerford and turned up Heights Palace. Via walked next to me like she usually does, and Mom and Dad were behind us. As soon as we turned the corner, we saw all the kids in front of the school, hundreds of them, talking to each other in a little groups, laughing and standing with their parents, who were talking with other parents. I kept my head way down. Everyone, everyone's just as nervous as you are," said Via in my ear. "Just remember that this is everyone's first day of school, okay?" Mr. Tishman was greeting students and parents in front of the school entrance. "I have to admit, so far, nothing bad has happened. I didn't catch anyone staring or even noticing me. Only once did I look up to see some girl looking at my way and whispering with her hands cupped over her mouth, but they looked away when they saw me notice them. We reached the front entrance. "Okay, so this is it, big boy," said Dad, putting his hands on top of my shoulders. "Have a great first day. I love you." And Vi giving me a big hug and kiss. "You too," I said. "I love you, Augie," Dad, hugging me. "Bye." Then Mom hugged me, but I could tell she was about to cry, which would have totally embarrassed me. So I just gave her a fast hand, heart tug, turned and disappeared into the school.
Lux. I went straight to room 301 on the third floor. Now I was glad I'd gone on that little tour because I knew exactly where to go and didn't have to look up at once. I noticed that some kids were definitely staring at me now. I did my thing of pretending not to notice. I went inside the classroom and the teacher was writing on the chalkboard while all the kids started sitting at different desks. The desks were in a half circle facing the chalkboard. So I chose a desk in the middle toward the back, which I thought would make it harder for anyone to stare at me. I still kept my head way down, just looking up enough from under my bangs to see everyone's feet. As the desk started to fill up, I did notice that no one sat down next to me. A couple of times, someone was about to sit next to me, then changed his or her mind at the last minute. And, and sat somewhere else. "Hey, August." It was Charlotte giving me her little wave as she sat down at the desk in front of the class. Why, why anyone would ever choose to up to sit way up in front of the class? I don't know. "Hey," I said, nodding hello. Then I noticed Julian was sitting a few seats away from her, talking to some of the kids. I know he saw me, but he didn't say hello. Suddenly someone was sitting down next to me. It was Jack. Jack. "What's up?" he said, nodding to me. "Hey, Jack," I answered, waving my hand, which I immediately wish I hadn't done because it felt kind of uncool.
"Okay, kids. Okay, everybody, settle down," said the teacher, now facing us. She had written her name, Miss Patesso, on the chalkboard. "Nobody, Everybody find a seat, please. Come in," she said to a couple of kids who were just walking in the room. "There's a seat there, right there." She hadn't noticed me yet. Now, the first thing I wanted everyone to do is to stop talking, and she noticed me. "Put your backpacks down and quiet down." She had only hesitated for a millionth of a second, but I could tell the moment she saw me. Like I said, I'm used to it by now. "I'm going to take attendance and should be seating and do the seating chart," she continued, sitting on the edge of her desk. Next to her were three rows of accordion folders. When I say your name, come up and I'll hand you your folder with your name on it. It contains your class schedule and your combination lock, which you should not try to open until I tell you to. Your locker number is written on the class schedule. Be forewarned, the same lockers are not right outside the classroom, but down the hall, and before anyone even thinks of asking. No, you cannot switch lockers and you can't switch locks. Then if there's time at the end of the period, we're all going to get to know each other a little better, okay? Okay. She picked up a clipboard on her desk and started reading the names out loud. "Okay, so Julian Elbins," she said, looking up. Julian raised his hand and said, "Here," at the same time. "Hi, Julian," she said, making a note in her seating chart. She picked up the very first folder and held it out towards him. Come pick it up, she said. No, kind of not, no nonsense. He got up and took it from her, and that would be 30 minutes. That is our time for today. So again, our assignment is for what we just read, this 30 minutes, come up with 3 more comic strips of the story we just read. You can pick anything you thought were important, come up with 3 more, and we will show those again when we next meet. All right. Thank you guys for staying along and reading with us. Have a good day, and we'll see you next time.